the product, the process, the people. Ethos Decorum.
My name is Trey Jones, and the name of my company is Trey Jones Studio. From a young age, I always wanted to make things. It started out with art and painting. My parents put me in like a painting class outside of school. I don't know, I was young, like second or third grade or something. And that was it from there. So from then on until college, I was mostly fine arts, painting and sculpture. And that's what I went to pursue in college. But in school, I began to paint and realized I had to make money doing that somehow. And I could not, to me, the point of painting was, and fine art was to make paintings and fine art, not to make money. So I couldn't reconcile that. So my girlfriend, now wife, was like, why don't you take this furniture class for fun with me? So I took it with her, and that was it. Studied furniture design, quit painting, studied furniture design the rest of the time, and that was 10 years ago. So this is a sofa that I'm working on. It is still in prototyping phase, so I'm still designing it, still tweaking it. It's here in my home so that I can test it out and see what needs to change and what I like about it and what I don't like about it. The sofa was born, the idea was born out of function. We wanted something that was, a little bit more compact and minimal and simple and beautiful, but that would also be a day bed as well. So it's pretty simple. You can just move a pillow and then you've got an open-end day bed. And also we have family, brothers and sisters that come stay with us, and we wanted them to have a nice wide place to sleep, so you can remove all the pillows and then it becomes the size of a twin size bed, and you can put a sheet on it. And so it's made out of ash wood, same wood as baseball bats, so it's light and hard. And yeah, we wanted to make something simple and functional and beautiful.
What's the difference between designing space versus designing furniture or objects?
That depends, but usually a space is a very client-driven thing. You're developing a kind of a relationship with that client and trying to understand what they want. And you want to produce the most beautiful space that fills their needs. So it's very like there's in any given space, especially commercial spaces, there's function and rules and desires, whereas an object is maybe just a little bit simpler. To me, at least, it starts with one function and one problem, and to me, an object or piece of furniture is solving some sort of small problem, some sort of little thing, and then it's just designing something to fit those needs of the problem, not the needs of a person.
How do you balance the function of an item or furniture versus the appeal? How do you balance those two things?
That's a good question. So I think that both a piece of furniture or an object should be both beautiful and functional. And I generally start with the function. The function is maybe what gets me inspired. And then applying or trying to apply beauty to that object that satisfies that function is what that's the point. That's fun.
How would you describe your design process from concept to the final product? How would you describe that?
It usually starts with trying to identify a problem, or problem is a harsh word, but something like, a gap in the market or something that fulfills a need. And so identifying, that, and then moving on to, kind of ideating and sketching to determine how to solve that. My process usually starts out as in the sketchbook. So I'll draw, I'll draw a bunch of ideations of something and continue drawing it until I'm happy. And then once I've finished in the sketchbook, then I take it into the 3D design program and work inside of there, and then that informs me to further details to change and scale, and I get it perfect in there, and then from there I go to the workshop and I make a full-size mock-up, or sometimes a small model, but most of the time a full-size mock-up or a full-scale prototype. And then from there it comes into my home where I test it out.
Where do you find inspiration?
I think that for me, when my work is the most successful, I am being inspired by many things, a wide array of things, and the more things, the better. I think that being inspired by one thing in particular it's hard to come up with a piece or something or do something that doesn't directly use parts of that. So I try to be inspired by as much as possible. But I mean, I can answer it. Lately, I've been most inspired by art and nature separately. I mean, art, like here in DC, we have access to all of these museums for free. And my wife and I go, at least once a week to one of the art museums. And that's huge for me. It's kind of, since we moved to DC 2 years ago, it's changed the way I design. So these are bookscapes. They're all different prototypes testing different materials or different details. But the purpose of these is to display your book, but we want it to do more than that. We want it to make it so that you get to use your books, your coffee table books at home, and put them out so that you get to see them open every day and interact with them. We test them out here, and I use them frequently and have seen pages of these books that I've owned for years pages I've seen for the first time. So these are cork. They're just lightweight, natural material. It's a bark off of a tree. They're just really, I enjoy them because they're kind of soft and they're very tactile. And they add another level of depth to the piece. So this is one of the first prototypes of the origami planter, which we now make it. And the reason this one is a prototype is it's smaller than the ones that we make. But this piece is copper. So these planters are actually designed for outside. And I was inspired by origami to make the shape of this piece. And the materials, we make them in two materials. One is copper and one is Corten steel. Those materials are important because they can be outside naturally. You don't have to treat them, you don't have to finish them. They go outside, and then over time they will patina, which for the copper, that means it will turn like brown and maybe even that bright green color. So both kind of evolve and change as nature does with nature, and then become more beautiful with time. It has drainage built into it, so the water would flow out a hole in the middle and then out these sides here so that your plant doesn't drown.
What's the difference between working on the East Coast and working on the West Coast?
There's a few differences. The people are different. The West Coast is a little bit more laid back, but in good and bad ways. Punctuality on the East Coast is actually really great. Like, everyone's really punctual, which I really appreciate. The biggest thing that I noticed, there's a difference in perception of quality. I feel that on the East Coast, people perceive cost and quality a little bit differently than they do on the West Coast. I haven't quite figured out exactly how, but there is definitely a difference there.
What are 3 things every designer should take into consideration when working on a project? Doesn't have to be 3, it could be 2 things or 5 things, but what should every designer take into consideration when working on a project? If you're making it for themselves, or if they're working for a client, what are some of the rules that they should kind of?
I mean, I think that, the first thing you should take into account is people. That's what you're doing it for. You're doing it for people. And it should be about them. And then the other thing is the future. I think a lot about like what I'm designing now and what that means. And that could mean a lot of things, but that, for me it means like making things responsibly and making things like not just adding more or trying to not just add more stuff, trying to add things with substance and a story and things that enrich people's lives. And like my current answer to like what things enrich is like kind of like planters. Like I think that there's no harm in having as many plants as possible in your home. I don't think that you could ever but you could have too many other random objects. You could have too many tchotchkes, but you could never have too many plants. I think that you would only be, and then there's books. Like I think books are other amazing things that will stand the test of time. So this is our frame planter. The design for this one was first started when I was designing a cafe, and I was looking for planters that would work in that space, and I couldn't find anything. So the very first prototype is in that cafe, and I designed it for them, and then I kind of refined it and worked on it, and then has yielded this. So it lifts this. We use the terracotta pot because terracotta is really good for plants. It allows water to evaporate and go in and out, air, water vapor. And then I built on here a small drip tray so water can flow into this drip tray and evaporate from there, so your plant is not sitting in water. And then the frame is to lift it off of the ground to not only elevate it aesthetically and conceptually, but to get it off of the ground so that your pot is not ruining your floor. So yeah, there's some details. It's a simple frame, but we put in some craft details that are very specific to this piece.